That simple green tumbler tucked away at the back of your kitchen cabinet, the one you have used for orange juice for the past 40 years, could be worth only $10, or it could quietly be valued at $3,000. These 10 pieces of vintage depression glass have brought in real money. And before we finish, I will reveal the one nearly every American woman already owns without knowing it. Let's see whether it is sitting somewhere in your home tonight. Depression glass may be the most ordinary hidden treasure in an American home. Between 1929 and 1939, as the country was falling apart, more than 20 glassmakers moved away from fine etched crystal and began machine pressing inexpensive colored tableware, up to more than 1,000 pieces a day. It was inexpensive enough to be handed out for free. The Quaker Oats Company and other food distributors dropped a piece of glass into boxes of food to persuade shoppers to buy. Theaters handed it out on dish night. That is precisely why it may be in your mother's cabinet today, just as it was in your grandmother's before her. Here's the honest truth, and I want you to remember it. Most of it is worth only $10 or $20, because most of it was made by the millions. The real money is hidden in the rare exceptions. It may be one scarce color, one unusual shape, or one pattern that collectors suddenly all want. If you were told your glass was junk, that was not carelessness on your part. No one ever showed you which rare exception you might be holding. Tonight that changes. Number 10. Royal lace in cobalt blue. At first glance, these are just heavy blue drinking glasses, the kind you would price at $1 a piece on a card table. That reaction makes sense. Lined up inside a cupboard, they do not appear especially impressive. But flip one over, and the story begins to change. Royal lace was pressed by Hazel Atlas in the 1930s, and the cobalt is the color collector's chase because most of it came in pink and green, and the deep blue was the exception. A matched set of 6 cobalt tumblers, undamaged, has sold for around $285. It is not a fortune, and I will not pretend otherwise, but not $1 a piece either. Try this tonight. Take one over to a bright window and look through the side wall of the glass. Genuine cobalt runs the same rich blue all the way through. A later painted imitation looks pale and streaked where the light hits the base. Melt that set down as scrap or hand it to a yard sale shopper for coins, and you may have handed away the cost of a week's groceries. Number 9. Number 9. Doric and Pansy in ultramarine. A covered butter dish of all the ordinary household objects. It carries a detailed little pattern in an odd blue-green. It is exactly the kind of piece that gets shoved to the back of a shelf and forgotten. But its production dates are what make it rare. Jeanette Glass pressed Doric and Pansy for just 2 years, 1937 and 1938, and never produced it again. That brief production run is the main reason a genuine ultramarine covered butter dish has sold for around $475. Here's the detail most people overlook. On a 2-year pattern, most of the value sits in the lid. The lids often broke and were discarded, so a matched lid and base together are much harder to find than either half alone. Set the 2 pieces on a kitchen scale and examine the color beside a window. True ultramarine carries a deep blue-green, not the flat teal of a modern copy. A butter dish nobody wanted, yet it can quietly be worth most of a month's electric bill. Number 8. Jadeite. That soft, opaque green kitchen glass. This is the reality of our list, and I will be completely honest with you. Most jadeite is not where the serious money lies. A stack of Fire King restaurant plates from Anchor Hawking runs $15 to $50, and plenty of it tops out around $5. But then the collector's market took an unexpected turn. When Martha Stewart began setting her jadeite out on television in the 1990s, interest in the rare form suddenly exploded. A McKee column sugar canister that sold for about $75 a decade ago now trades past $1,000. A genuine Fire King ball jug can bring $200 to $400. Check this now. Flip the piece over and look for the raised Fire King or McKee mark. Next, hold it up to the light. Real vintage jadeite is dense and even, not the thin, overly bright green of the reproductions Martha herself later licensed. An everyday plate may cover a grocery run, while the rare canister beside it may cover a car payment. Number 7. Number 7. Mayfair in blue. A set of footed tumblers. Sitting on a shelf, they look like nice water glasses and nothing more. That first impression is understandable. They are not flashy. But Mayfair was pressed by hawking, and the blue is the color that makes serious collectors open their wallets, because far more Mayfair was made in pink than in that clear, icy blue. A set of 6 blue-footed tumblers, matched and unchipped, sold for just under $720. Here is the detail that matters most. Condition controls nearly everything on Mayfair. One chip on one foot, and the set stops being a set. Bring them to a window in natural daylight and rotate each glass slowly. You are looking for the flea-bite nicks on the rims and feet that sellers often insist are not there. 6 perfect glasses can quietly bring more than 700. 5 perfect and 1 chipped may bring only a fraction of that amount. People separate these sets without ever knowing they were the set. Number 6. Number 6. American Sweetheart in pink. It is a thin, pretty pattern, the sort your daughters might describe as fussy or old-fashioned. But take a closer look at the piece. American Sweetheart was made by the Macbeth Evans Glass Company of Charleroi, Pennsylvania. The firm Thomas Evans and George Macbeth founded in Pittsburgh, and the one Corning bought out in 1936, and it was produced only from 1930 to 1936. Flat plates and saucers are relatively common and inexpensive. The pink water pitcher is the form that rarely survived intact, and one in perfect condition sold for $895. Here's the test to try tonight. Hold the pitcher near a lamp. Genuine Macbeth Evans pink glows a warm, even rose and rings with a clear note when you tap it lightly with a fingernail. Carefully trace your finger around the spout and the handle joint where hidden damage usually appears. In 20 years of walking through estate sales, I have seen the cheap plate get saved for the shelf while the $800 pitcher end up filled with dish soap in the garage. Number 5. Before moving into the top 5, there is something in all of this that most people never pause long enough to notice. The pieces that quietly change hands for real money rarely look valuable. They wait in donation boxes and on thrift store shelves because the person holding them decided within 2 seconds that anything old and colored must be worthless. But the value of glass has very little to do with whether you personally find it attractive. It is found in a maker's mark pressed into the base. The exact shade of the color, the shape that happened to survive in small numbers, the mold seams that separate a 1930s original from a 1970s copy. Those are the clues I gathered into the appraiser's playbook, a straightforward guide that guides you through the marks, the colors, and the small physical checks that tell an ordinary cabinet piece from one worth hundreds before you place it in a dealer's hands. You will find it linked below if you want it beside you while checking the cabinet. Now let's return to the countdown. Number 5. And from here, the tone changes because from this point up, every piece I name is one that someone has eventually learned how to reproduce. Start with Adam in Pink by Jeanette Glass, specifically the covered butter dish. An ordinary butter dish may look like nothing special, but a genuine Adam Pink butter lid and base, with both matching parts, has sold for just under $1,250. And that price is precisely why reproductions exist. Here's the detail almost nobody explains at the sale table. The only reason a piece gets reproduced is that it became profitable enough to copy. The key to identifying Adam lies in its fit and feel. Place the lid carefully onto the base, and an original will sit cleanly, and the pattern lines up corner to corner. Then lift it and feel the weight. Reproductions nearly always feel too heavy, the glass thick, dull, and lifeless, where the 1930s original is crisp and light. $1,200 or a modern fake worth nothing. And the only difference you need to uncover is a 30-second inspection that most sellers never bother to do. Number 4. Number 4. Parrot, also called Sylvan, made by the Federal Glass Company. This is where the values begin to climb, and it is why I told you at the beginning that a single piece could be worth thousands. Parrot was a short-lived pattern, and certain forms are now exceptionally difficult to find. The right combination, a rare pitcher, a hot plate, a particular tumbler has sold for prices ranging from several hundred up to around $3,500. Now let me be honest, as a responsible dealer should be, that $3,500 represents the top end of the range, not a guarantee on every parrot you find. Here is the tell. Search for the pair of birds facing each other among the palm fronds sharply molded into the glass, and check the seams. The scare shapes of the hot plate and the pitcher, not the dinner plate everyone kept. And keep number 2 in the back of your mind. The piece I most want you to inspect tonight is still ahead. Number 3. Number 3. The Mayfair cookie jar in blue the pattern collectors call open rose. A cookie jar may sound like one of the least valuable objects in a kitchen, but a genuine blue open rose cookie jar carries a guide value between $1,500 and $3,000 or more. That value is exactly why it is one of the most reproduced pieces in all of depression glass. Here is exactly how to identify an authentic one, and I want you to do this tonight. Lift the lid and count the sides of the knob. An original Mayfair knob has 8 sides. The reproduction knob has 6. After that, flip the base over and look for the mold ring. A faint raised circle found on originals, and the fakes usually miss. 8 sides and a mold ring, and you could genuinely be holding $2,000 or $3,000. 6 sides, and you are holding a modern cookie jar. The National Depression Glass Association and every price guide June Florence ever wrote have spent years teaching collectors to make that count. Number 2, and this is the pattern that has cost people the most money because it is the most faked pattern there is. Cherry Blossom by Jadeite. It seems to be everywhere, and that is exactly the problem. For every genuine piece in the right color and form that sits in that $200 to $3,000 range where the rare glass lives, there is a reproduction made specifically to deceive buyers, sometimes in cobalt and iridescent colors. Jadeite never once produced. Here is the one test that can settle the question, and it costs absolutely nothing. Locate the cherries in the pattern and study the tiny raised bumps on each cherry. A real Jadeite cherry has exactly 2 bumps. The common reproduction has 3. The reproduction spotters like Barbara Mousy devoted entire books to that one difference. The fakes reveal themselves with cherries that look squished and a branch that sits like a solid bar of glass instead of a real stem. 2 bumps and the pattern is honest. 3 bumps, or a color that feels too heavy and too new in your hand, and you are holding someone's tidy little forgery. Count those bumps before accepting anything a seller tells you. And number 1 is the piece I promised you from the beginning, the one almost every one of you may already own. Number 1. Number 1. And this is the piece nearly every one of you owns. The one I promised at the very start. Plain green depression glass. The tumbler, the plate, the little dish that has lived in your cabinet your whole life. Here is the myth I want to remove from your mind tonight because it causes people to lose money in 2 different ways. At some point, you may have heard that if green depression glass glows under a black light, that is the valuable kind. So people buy an ultraviolet light, shine it in the dark, and when a piece lights up in that electric neon green, they become convinced they have found a fortune. Here is the truth that glow means the glass contains uranium. Anywhere from 0.1% to 2% uranium oxide baked in for color, during a time when almost no one questioned it. The glow is real, and it is genuinely beautiful. But that glow is not what creates the value. Most green depression glass was never uranium at all. It was colored with cheap iron and chromium. And a glowing green tumbler still books at $10 to $20 like any other. What determines the price is the same thing that determined every value on this list. The pattern, the color, the rarity of the shape, and the maker mark on the base, not the glow. So here's what I genuinely want you to do. Take that green glass to a lamp. Turn it over and study it as though you were reading a page. The mark, the pattern, the form. That is the skill connecting every one of these 10 pieces, from the cobalt tumbler to the faked cherries. The glass does not have to glow to be worth something. It simply has to be the correct piece, and you will not know until you flip it over and inspect it. So before removing even one shelf of glass, before you let anyone tell you the colored glass is just old dishes, before you accept the first offer a dealer pushes across the table, turn every piece over and read the base. That is the central lesson with depression glass. The pattern and the rarity set the price, never the glow, and never by how attractive it appears to a stranger. In 20 years, I have seen too many families hand away the one good piece along with the box of worthless ones, only because no one paused to inspect it. If this helps save even one piece in your cabinet from that fate, press the like button so it reaches another woman staring at her mother's glass wondering what it is worth. Subscribe if you want to examine your entire home this way, one drawer and one shelf at a time. And tell me in the comments, what color is the glass you inherited and who did it come from? I read each and every comment. Then go find that green tumbler tonight. Turn it over and inspect it before anyone else gets the opportunity.